The three formulas. The ancient sages of Oriental lands were wont to remind their pupils that the practical rules and methods of manifesting or expressing personal power could be reduced to three fundamental and basic rules, or formulas. The experience of modern investigators of the subject tends to corroborate this conclusion of their ancient brothers. Therefore, we have thought it well to present this phase of our subject to you in the form of these three ancient formulas, adapted to modern needs, and expressed in the plain terms of the Western world rather than in the verbal imagery of Eastern lands. The three formulas of personal power are as follows. 1. The Formula of Idealization. 2. The Formula of Affirmation, and 3. The Formula of Actualization. A formula is a prescribed, set rule or method of application. Asked to consider carefully the description and instruction concerning these three several formulas, as hereinafter presented to you in detail under their respective headings and categories. The Formula of Idealization. Idealization consists of the act or process of creating the ideal, mental, form, pattern, design, or mold of that which you desire to materialize in objective reality. Ideals, dearly defined in outline and sharply defined in the configuration, energized and vitalized by an inflow of willpower, tend to materialize themselves in objective reality, by means of a. Building up a corresponding ethereal pattern, outline, design, or mold, around which is deposited the substance of materialization, and b. By means of attracting to themselves the persons, conditions, things, and environmental factors which aid in the process of materialization. Materialization is the act or process of investing with material form, or material properties, that which has previously existed in idealized form or condition. In the Formula of Idealization there is embodied a wonderful truth concerning the manifestation of nature's finer forces, which truth was well known to the ancient esoteric schools of philosophy, and which has always been accepted, in one form or another, by the advanced students and teachers of the ancient wisdom or esoteric doctrines, of all lands, and in all times. Our Western science, however, has heretofore been disposed to treat all such teachings as idle superstition, or occult nonsense. The wonderful discoveries of science during the past 20 years, however, have tended to break down the barrier between esoteric science and exoteric science, and, at the present time many careful advanced thinkers in the ranks of modern science are disposed to manifest a far greater tolerance toward these ancient teachings, and are furnishing explanations along the lines of modern scientific discoveries, which seek to account for the phenomena explained in other terms by the ancient thinkers. In the meantime, however, thousands of persons are making wonderful demonstrations of these truths in their everyday life and work, and, consequently, are not much concerned over what modern science may or may not have to say concerning the explanation in modern scientific terms. They are interested far more in the fact that the thing works, and in learning just how it works, than in theories attempting to explain why it works, if it does work as is claimed. The gist of the ancient and modern teachings upon the subject of the workings of the process of idealization may be stated as follows: a strongly projected thought form, or idealized form, vitalized and energized by willpower, tends to attract to itself, and to build around itself, its materialized counterpart or material representation. In this way, the ideal becomes real, in the sense of objective and material existence and condition, and idealization is transformed into materialization. It is not our intention, nor our purpose, in this material, to go into technical details nor to enter into academic discussions concerning the processes performed by nature in working these wonders. To attempt this would be to enter into an endless discussion and explanation which would take the whole instruction out of the region of practical, popular examination and consideration. But, nevertheless, we wish to mention briefly the general principles involved, and thus to give you a hint as to the direction in which the technical explanation of these phenomena lies, and where it may be sought if one so desires to pursue the inquiry further in that direction. A leading writer upon the teaching of ancient and modern magic, says, the central doctrine of magic may be summed up as follows. One, that a supersensible and real cosmic medium exists, which interpenetrates, influences, and supports the tangible and apparent world, and which is amenable to the categories of both philosophy and physics. This cosmic medium or astral light is the first cousin to the intangible physicists. From the earliest times, occult philosophy has proclaimed its knowledge of this medium, always describing it as a scientific fact, outside the range of our normal senses, but susceptible of verification by the trained powers of the initiate. It was the first object of occult education and initiation to actualize this supersensible plane of experience, teaching the student how to impose upon its forces the directive forces of his own thought and will, as easily as he might impose these upon the material things of sense. 2. That there is an established analogy and equilibrium between the material and supermaterial world. This doctrine of analogy, or correspondence between the seen and the unseen worlds, is the basis of the speculations of occultism. As above, so below, as below, so above. First axiom of Hermes Trismegistus, is also agreeable to all Platonists. Says Eliphas Levi, analogy is the last word of science, and the first word of faith, it is the key of all the secrets of nature. It was admitted into the system of the Kabbalah, and Bohm and Swedenborg gladly availed themselves of its method in presenting their intuitions to the world. Sir Thomas Browne said, "The severe schools shall never laugh me out of the philosophy of Hermes, that this visible world is but a picture of the invisible, wherein, as in a portrait, things are not in material shapes, but in ideal shapes which picture some material substance in that invisible framework." 3. That the equilibrium between the material and supermaterial worlds may be controlled by the disciplined thought and will of man. In its essence, a magical initiation is a traditional form of mental discipline, strengthening and focusing the will. Says Eliphas Levi, just as the powers of the body to an amazing extent by athletics, so may the powers of the soul be likewise developed, learn how to will. This power of the will is daily gaining recognition in the camps of science, as the chief factors in religion and in therapeutics, of the healing of the body and the healing of the soul, for our most advanced theories on these subjects are little more than the old wine in the new bottles. Modern philosophy, supported to a great extent by the facts of science, explains some of the asserted facts of magic, as just stated, by the theory of unconscious will and unconscious idea as cosmic principles, the extension of this conception to man, on the principle of analogy, as above, so below, as below, so above, giving the key to the secret of the creative activities of man. In short, it implicitly asserts that man, the microcosm, may proceed to create by means of the deliberate employment of the same methods and processes, and through the same principles, like those employed by nature, or the cosmos, the macrocosm. And, as we shall show you in the following paragraphs, modern science postulates the existence of a counterpart of the cosmic medium, or astral light, of the occultists. Modern science, in the conception of the universal ether, asserts the existence of an immaterial, imponderable substance similar to that postulated by the ancient Hindu philosophers under the name of Akasha, or Prakriti. This universal ether is held by modern science to pervade all space, and to be the ultimate state or condition of all materiality. Matter is held to be a derivative product of it, and to be destined eventually to return to it. Stockwell says, the ether is coming to be apprehended as immaterial, superphysical substance, filling all space, carrying in its infinite throbbing bosom the specks of aggregated dynamic force called worlds. It embodies the ultimate spiritual principle, and represents the unity of those forces and energies from which spring, as their source, all phenomena, physical, mental, and spiritual, as they are known to us. Bigelow speaks of that extraordinary entity upon whose inferential existence the lines of modern scientific thought seem to converge, the interstellar ether, which seems likely to prove the ultimate form of matter out of which everything comes and to which everything must eventually return. The ether is unconditioned, an entity of no properties, or more exactly not an entity at all, but an infinite possibility. So then, if you demand to know what support our formula of idealization has in ancient thought, or in modern science, you have it suggested to you in the foregoing. There is this intangible substance that is capable of being worked up into material form by ideation animated by will, in the cosmic processes. It is but carrying the idea to its logical conclusion when it is asserted that the I am I, being a focalized center of the universal principle of power, may and does possess, in at least some degree, the power to create in the same general way, i.e. by idealization energized and animated by will power. Idealization, according to the formula, begins with the projection of an ideal form, or thought form, clearly defined in outline and sharply defined in the configuration, well energized and vitalized by an inflow of will power. This ideal form, or thought form, is stated to tend to materialize itself objective reality, by means of, a. Building up a corresponding ethereal pattern, outline, design, or mold, around which is deposited the substance of materialization, and, b. By means of attracting to itself the persons, conditions, things, and environmental factors which aid in the process of materialization. You may project this ideal image, or thought form, by first creating a clear idea or mental picture, employing both thought and imagination in the process. You will find yourself aided in this by picturing the ideal image, or thought form, as superimposed upon the ethereal substance, whereupon it begins at once to a more substantial structure and body. You may be helped in this conception by employing the symbol of the projection of a picture by the familiar magic lantern. Think of your ideal image, or thought form, as the picture painted or photographed on the lantern slide, the ethereal substance as being the screen or sheet upon which the picture is thrown or projected, your attention being the lens of the lantern or projecting apparatus which focalizes and concentrates the strength of the light, your will as the light which projects the picture, your desire as the fuel or energy which causes the light of will to burn. The ideal image, or thought form, must be kept energized by will power, as you have been told in the formula. This is a very important factor in the process. Be the ideal image or thought form ever so clear, sharp, and strong, it will lack energy and power unless it is fed and kept the proper flow of will power. In order to so supply it, you should keep your mind on those features of the picture which make it desirable and wished for by you. You should frequently picture in your mind the pleasure, content, and satisfaction which will be yours when the ideal is materialized, when the dream comes true. By thus arousing desire, you will keep flowing to the ideal image thought form, that energy, strength, and vitality of the will which it requires in order to grow and unfold itself. You will find that the power of your will, employed in this way, will be stimulated and strengthened by means of the cultivation of a strong craving, longing, hungry, thirsting desire for the materialization of your ideal image, or thought form. By craving, it meant urgently longing for, eagerly and strongly desiring and demanding, passionately longing for and demanding, insatiable longing for, etc. The stronger and more persistent and insistent the craving of desire, the greater is the will tension manifested in the ideal image or thought form. The flame of desire must be kept burning brightly, in order that the light of will may be sufficient to do its work. Likewise, the will is stimulated to increased and intensified activity by the presence of the mental state of hope, faith, belief, in short, confident expectation of the successful outcome of the attempt and task. Faith power is an important element of ideative and volitional power. It must not be overlooked in your practice of personal power. The formula also states that the ideal image, or thought form, must be clear in outline and in configuration, clearly defined in both respects. Inasmuch as the ideal image, or thought form, is the pattern or framework around which your materialization is to be effected or built, it follows that the best effects are obtained when that pattern or framework is clearly defined and sharply outlined. The materialization proceeds to manifest along the lines of the idealization, and cannot be expected to be better than is its pattern and mold. It is realized by us, of course, that, at least at first, you are not likely to find it easy to create or to build up a perfect, complete ideal image, or thought form, of that which you wish to become materialized. Moreover, we realize that you may wish to fill in the outlines of your pattern or framework, to add some new details or features, or to make some improvements upon the original plan, as you proceed. These things are all possible under this method of idealization. In fact, nearly everyone who accomplishes results by its means proceeds in just this way, from the very nature of the case. The principle of idealization is not affected by such additions or changes. The ideal image, or thought form, is not rigid and fixed, but rather is flexible and capable of being remolded, reshaped, altered, remodeled, and added to as you proceed. Even nature proceeds according to evolution, trial, experiment, adaptation, improvement, and combination, so thus may you also proceed. The best general rule for the practical performance of the projecting process of idealization is as follows: acquire the faculty of forming the clearest possible outline of the things and conditions you wish to materialize into objective form. If you cannot at first fill in the details of your projected ideal image, or thought form, you should at least build and draw strong, clear, firm general outlines, and then, as you proceed with your idealization, and its materialization, you may add the missing or minor details, altering, changing, improving, remodeling, and reshaping the ideal pattern or framework. Do not hesitate to begin the process of idealization simply because you cannot at first supply the details of your picture. The general outlines will be enough to start with, but let these be as clear, sharp, and strong as possible. Finally, you should understand that by the term ideal image, or thought form, we always mean simply the idea of that which you wish to do, or to be, or to happen, the object of your desire will faith idea, in fact. This object may be a plain, simple, and immediate thing, or, again, it may be an elaborate, complex, and remote thing, but the general principle remains unchanged, and the general method of applying it is the same. The ideal image, or thought form, is the form in the seed, which you wish to materialize into the form of the plant, flower, and fruit. The following suggestions may aid you in forming your mental picture. 1. Idealize the desired things, happenings, or conditions just exactly as if they were existent and active at that particular moment, right here and now, before you. 2. Idealize yourself as you wish to be or to do. 3. Idealize others as you wish them to be or to do. 4. Idealize happenings as you wish them to occur. 5. Idealize conditions as you wish them to be. 6. Idealize your environment as you wish it to be. 7. Idealize your power, strength, and ability as you wish them to be. Here is the method, in a nutshell. 1. Discover what you crave to be or to do, or to have happened. 2. Form a clear, strong, and distinct ideal image, or thought form, of such. 3. Vitalize and energize this by willpower aroused by desire, stimulated by faith. 4. Project the ideal image, or thought form, into the ethereal substance, there to become materialized. 5. Keep the picture clear, strong, and corrected, up to date, in the same way. 6. Keep it supplied with continuous interest and attention and energized by desire, faith, and willpower. 7. Then wait confidently and expectantly its materialization and realization, for lo, your own shall come to you. In the above condensed statement, you have the essence of that which many materials have been written to express, many lessons have been given to teach, and which might be expanded into many volumes of instruction. Commit it to memory, and repeat it often to yourself. The Formula of Affirmation. Affirmation consists of the act or process of expressing in verbal form, in words, the statement of the thought or idea of that which you desire to materialize in objective reality. Words are crystallized thought. When an idea is expressed in words, it has additional strength and power. The verbal expression of an idea gives to the latter a body and substance that it otherwise lacks. The spoken word was held by ancient occultists to have a mystical and esoteric significance and power. The experience of modern mental science, of various schools of interpretation of the basic principles of its teachings, has served to demonstrate the value of affirmations in securing results of their idealistic thought directed toward practical ends. The human race did very little intelligent or purposive thinking before it invented spoken language. Moreover, the greater and more adequate is the vocabulary of a people, or of an individual, the greater is the capacity for clear, definite thought on the part of that person or that individual. This does not mean the person talks, or the more words he utters, the deeper is his thought. In fact, the reverse of such proposition is often found to be true. But it is true that the more terms that a person has at his command for use in his thinking, the clearer and more definite will be his thought. Words may be, and often are, employed to disguise or to conceal thoughts, or to conceal the lack of real thoughts and ideas, but without adequate terms, clear and close thinking is impossible. Arnold Bennett says, when a writer conceives an idea, he conceives it in the form of words. That form of words constitutes his style, and it is absolutely governed by the idea. The idea can only exist in words, it can only exist in one form of words. You cannot say exactly the same thing in two different ways. Slightly alter the expression, and you slightly alter the idea. A clear idea is expressed clearly, and a vague idea vaguely. Hazlitt says, not only will an improvement in a thought improve its wording, an improvement in wording will improve the thought. To study clearness of statement is to study means of improving thought. Thus, you see, affirmation has for one of its main purposes the strengthening of the thought or idea, and the creation of a more clear, distinct, and definite outline of it. You may hold the thought of the thing or condition which you desire to materialize, you may form a strong mental picture of it, but neither the thought nor the picture will possess its full measure of strength or dearness until you embody the thought or idea, and describe the picture, in formal words. If you will carefully write down in words your thought or idea of the thing or condition which you desire to materialize and will correct that written statement until you feel that you have reached the limits of your powers of effective verbal expression, you will then find that your thought and idea, and your mental picture as well, have taken on new strength, vigor, body, and degree of definiteness and clearness. We may mention in passing, rather for the purpose of suggestion and of indication of how men's minds in the past have taken hold of this idea of the power of words, that many teachers of the ancient esoteric schools held that all true creative activities have proceeded from the original impulse imparted by words, this being true of the creation of the cosmos and of the creations of man. There was a mystic significance attached to the use of the term, the word. Poe refers to this old idea in his essay entitled The Power of Words. The Oriental sages have much to say concerning the power of mystic mantras to awaken vibrations in the ether to cause materialization. The opening paragraphs of the Gospel of John are, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was at the beginning with God." Moreover, reference to the first chapter of Genesis will show that God is pictured by the writer of that material as creating the world, in successive stages or by successive steps, by divine fiat, or authoritative spoken word, as, for instance, "And God said, Let there be light, and there was light." Again, "And God said, Let there be a firmament, in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." And so on, verbal command succeeding verbal command, until the work of creation is completed. We shall not pursue this phase of the subject further. The above will serve to indicate the trend of man's thoughts concerning the power of the spoken word. There is no set rule or form for the expression of the verbal affirmation. If you will state in words, positively and definitely, that which is involved in your idea, and which you have sought to picture mentally in the process of idealization, you will be performing efficiently the process of affirmation. There is no special virtue in any particular combination of words, however, so do not fall into the superstitious fallacy concerning verbal charms, etc., nor strive to invent mantras. The virtue in affirmations lies in the thought or idea back of the words, the spirit of the words, rather than their form, and not in any magic or mystical combinations of words or sounds. If the words of your affirmation are clear, definite, and right to the point, they will serve the purpose effectively. Do not become a blind follower of cut and dried forms of affirmations announced by teachers and others claiming authority. Your own forms are just as good as these. They may really be better if they more clearly and effectively express your own thought in the matter. Here, however, is an important point concerning the employment of affirmations. Always make your affirmative statements in the present tense. Do not say, "So and so will be such and such, by and by," but, instead, speak up boldly and affirm that "so and so is such and such, right here and now." And, in truth, such is the case, you are speaking the word of truth which transcends time limitations. The "so and so is such and such" in the idealized form, the materialized form is even now crystallizing itself around it. Also, make your affirmative statements earnestly and positively, avoid half-hearted or maybe statements, lest only half-hearted or maybe results may materialize for you. Exercise the power of faith, express the confident expectation. Do not assume the tone of asking a favor, speak the word of command and demand. You are not a beggar, you are a master. Denials, or reversed affirmations, are useful at times, particularly when you feel the need for protection and the necessity for clearing away obstacles that hinder your advance. Otherwise, positive affirmations should be employed, constructive rather than destructive. It has well been said that dark are speedily and effectively dispelled by letting in the light than by attempting to shovel out the darkness. As a general rule, it is well to proceed upon this principle. But we are not among those who refuse to see any virtue at all in denials. On the contrary, we advise such method in certain cases, this always to be followed and fortified by positive affirmations. In employing denials, or reversed affirmations, you boldly, firmly, and positively deny out of your world of experience the obstacle or obstruction which is impeding your legitimate progress, or the antagonistic influence which is being directed against you. It is marvelous to see how, at such times, these antagonistic or obstructive things and circumstances will disintegrate and dissolve into ineffective nothingness, so far as you yourself are concerned. The following is an example of the general form of denial or reversed affirmation. I deny power and reality to this influence or obstacle. Over me it has no power or influence, for me, it has no obstructing power. For my master self, my I am I, it has no practical existence. Accompany this with an idealized mental picture of the obstructing from the scene, leaving the remainder of the picture intact without the presence of the thing which has been denied out of your experience. Then follow up this process with those of idealization and affirmation along constructive lines, i.e., along the lines of the creation and materialization of that which you desire to be manifested and expressed in reality. Finally, always fill your affirmation with feeling, faith, and will. Make it alive with feeling and emotion, desire, craving, and insistent urge. Make it glow with faith, make it strong with an inflow of willpower. Throw will, faith, and feeling into your affirmation as well as into your idealization. Do not fall into the habit of affirming in dead words, repeated parrot-like. Instead, throw yourself into them. Speak with the air of authority, as if to those who are in the habit of obeying your commands and of expressing into action your wishes. Do not bluster, rant, or rave, but rather cultivate the voice of real strength and authority, calm, well-poised, and confident of itself. If you speak from the I am I consciousness, you will be able to do this effectively. The Formula of Actualization. Actualization consists of making actual by action that which you desire to materialize in objective reality, and the idea of which is represented in your mental pictures of idealization, and in your spoken words of affirmation. In actualization, you make the mental paths, which lead to achievement and accomplishment. You also strengthen the idealized framework, pattern, design, or mold of your idealization, and give expression and manifestation to your verbal statements of affirmation. The greater your ability to act and act out the faith of realization that is in you, the greater will be your ability to bring about that material realization of that which is now real in idealized form. In actualization, you proceed to exhibit in real action the spirit of that which you have idealized and affirmed. In actualization, as in idealization and affirmation, there is a potent natural law or principle involved. We are not inventing these principles, nor are we claiming any right of discovery of them. On the contrary, we are but applying terms to, and describing the operation of, certain basic principles of nature's activities which have always existed, and always will exist, at least so long as there is a cosmos. The secret of the efficacy of actualization lies in the natural principle under which the measure of available strength is determined by the degree of the use and employment of such strength. In all nature, it is found that use determines supply. The available muscular strength of a man depends materially upon the degree of the previous use, exercise, or employment of his muscles. The man who exercises or employs a certain set of muscles will be found to acquire a marked development of those particular parts of his body, while the man who has not exercised or used these will be found to lack the special development and strength acquired by the first man. In the same way, exercise, employment, and use tend greatly to develop and cultivate any of the mental faculties. The increased rate of development of a mental faculty arises not alone by reason of acquaintance and familiarity with the task, but also from the increase of the available power of that faculty which comes its use and employment, the power comes in response to the demand and necessity for it which arises in the course of its use and employment. The rule of nature is to send strength and power to those parts or faculties which are used, employed, and exercised in due measure, and to weaken and atrophy those which are either used to excess or else not employed in due measure. The norm, or natural degree of strength, depends largely upon the degree of the manifestation of the norm, or the reasonable degree of natural expression, employment, use, and exercise. The physical giant and the mental giant each owes his power not alone to natural aptitude and equipment, but also, and in a large measure, to the natural use and exercise of his aptitude and equipment. Without attempting to illustrate the principle at greater length, we say to you that if you will proceed to act as if the desired power and strength were gradually flowing into you, then there will come to you such a gradual inflow, and there will be manifested in you a greater capacity for personal power. Act out the part for which you are preparing yourself. Rehearse the part which you are expecting to play in earnest in the drama of life. Acquire the motions, gestures, outward manifestations, inward feelings, viewpoints, outlook, etc., of the individual you desire and expect to be. Train yourself for the part by earnest rehearsal. The process of idealization affirmation will bring power to the very gates of your individual irrigation channels, but you must actually raise the gates in order to permit the inflow of its power and energy. You must use, employ and apply its power in actual work and activity, if you wish the flow to continue. Personal power is given to you for use, and not for hoarding. There is a law of use as well as a law of attraction in nature. Just as the will process is not complete short of actual action, just as an idea is not complete until it moves into outward expression, so is your personal power not complete until you have begun to use, employ, manifest, and express it. So do not content yourself merely with idealization and affirmation, but, instead, get to work and complete the process by actually manifesting and expressing the rays of power that are flowing into you in order to bring about the materialization of that which you desire to manifest in objective form. Do not overdo the expression and manifestation, but do not underdo it. Strive ever to maintain the golden mean, the balance between the two extremes. In poise there is power. Much of the adverse criticism which has been directed toward the followers of the various school of the new metaphysical movement, under its many names, is based upon the theory that such individuals are mere daydreamers, that they shirk the real tasks of living, and refuse to look at the actualities confronting them in everyday life, and, instead, content themselves with building castles in Spain, and indulging in daydreams of what they would like to be and to do, and to possess. So far as many persons are concerned, such criticism is merited in some degree, but here the trouble arises not because of the true metaphysical teaching on the subject, but rather because these individuals see but 2/3 of the truth, and ignore the remaining 1/3. They are strong in idealization and affirmation, overstressing the latter, particularly, but are very weak in actualization. In fact, they often tacitly or expressly deny the need of it. One may dream, in fact, he must do so if he wishes to create and construct, he may affirm his power, he must do so if he wishes to achieve, but he must also manifest into action the ideals and the power possessed by him. He must say, I dare and I do, as well as, I can and I will. He must act as well as think, feel, and plan. He must express himself in action, as well as impress his thought and will upon the responsive ethereal substance. The word actual is derived from the same root as are the terms act, active, or activity. Before a thing becomes actual, it must be the subject of action and activity. Actuality follows activity, and activity results from an action, and action from an act. Actualization is a necessary factor of realization and materialization. Without it, idealization and affirmation are aborted, and are never able to manifest in the world of realization and materialization. So, then, remember always to transmute the thought, and word, into action. Otherwise, you are but a mere dreamer of dreams, a speaker of words, and not a doer of deeds. Action is the end and goal of thought and word.